Within the intricate tapestry of existence, there are junctures where those who once felt invulnerable see their realities unravel. Karma, the cosmic force restoring the balance of justice, possesses a distinct knack for tracking down wrongdoers. Here unfolds the narrative of dirty cops confronting a brutal form of karma, a compelling interplay of destiny and reckoning. These figures, notwithstanding their positions of power, wrestle with the relentless repercussions of their deeds. Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin, the former police officer who became notorious for his role in the murder of George Floyd, found himself on a path of reckoning that many view as a manifestation of karmic justice. Chauvin's conviction marked the onset of a series of events that would profoundly reshape his life. Following his conviction, Chauvin's life took a dramatic turn. His bail was revoked, and he was remanded into custody by the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. He was transferred to the Minnesota Department of Corrections, where he was booked into the Oak Park Heights prison. It was here that Chauvin experienced a harsh reality. He was held in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, isolated in a wing of the prison. This extreme isolation was deemed necessary due to concerns for his safety, a reflection of the public outrage surrounding his actions. Chauvin's stay at Oak Park Heights continued until his sentencing hearing on June 25, 2021. The prosecution, led by Hennepin County District Judge Peter Cahill, successfully argued that Chauvin had treated George Floyd with particular cruelty. This argument played a pivotal role in determining the length of Chauvin's sentence. In the end, he was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison on the second-degree murder charge, with the second-degree manslaughter and third-degree murder charges remaining unadjudicated. In addition to his state sentence, Chauvin's federal plea agreement added another layer to his incarceration. He would serve both state and federal sentences concurrently and be subject to 5 years of parole upon release. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, his scheduled release date is set for September 4, 2038. A significant turn of events came in August 2022 when Chauvin was transferred to FCI Tucson, a federal facility in Arizona. This marked a new chapter in his life behind bars, far away from the circumstances and surroundings he had previously known. Chauvin's journey toward reckoning didn't end with his conviction. In December 2021, he made a pivotal decision by pleading guilty to federal charges. Chauvin admitted for the first time to violating George Floyd's constitutional rights. This admission carried significant weight as it acknowledged the wrongful actions that led to Floyd's tragic death. Chauvin also admitted to wrongdoing in a 2017 incident involving a 14-year-old. A plea deal was reached with federal prosecutors, leading to a sentence of between 20 and 25 years in prison. This sentence would be served concurrently with his state sentence, adding to the years he would spend behind bars. On July 7, 2022, Chauvin's fate was sealed as he was officially sentenced to 21 years in prison for violating the civil rights of both George Floyd and the 14-year-old involved in the 2017 incident. Chauvin's journey into the legal system was not devoid of prior controversies. His career in law enforcement was marked by a series of questionable incidents. Throughout his tenure, he had been involved in 3 police shootings, one of which had resulted in a fatality. This history raised significant concerns about his suitability as a police officer and his approach to handling high-pressure situations. Chauvin's record also included 18 complaints on his official record, with 2 of these complaints resulting in discipline in the form of letters of reprimand. These incidents painted a picture of a rogue officer, and they would come to play a significant role in his ultimate conviction. Richard David Johnson. In the city of Richmond, Virginia, a tale unfolded, one that would shake the community and send shockwaves through the police department. It was the story of a police officer, Richard David Johnson, who found himself on the wrong side of the law, facing the unforgiving consequences of a moment of recklessness. Little did he know, karma was about to set its relentless sights on him, unwavering in its pursuit of justice. The saga began on a fateful evening in April 2022. Johnson, a former Richmond police officer, was on duty, responding to a code 1-inch burglary call. With lights flashing and sirens wailing, he was in pursuit of what he believed to be a high-priority case. He was not alone. A trainee, Dequan Walker, was with him, eager to learn the ropes from an experienced officer. But this was no ordinary night. As they sped through the city, Johnson pushed the limits of his cruiser. He raced at a dangerous 60 miles per hour in a zone where the speed limit was a mere 35 miles per hour. The urgency of their mission seemed to override all caution, and they ignored the boundaries of safety. And then, in the blink of an eye, it happened. Johnson ran a red light, a decision that would change lives forever. His police cruiser collided with a car carrying 2 teenagers, 18-year-old Jeremiah Ruffin and 19-year-old Tracy Williams. A catastrophe unfolded as both teenagers were ejected from the vehicle, neither wearing a seatbelt. The accident left the community in shock, and it was only the beginning of a long and painful journey towards justice. The legal proceedings that followed laid bare the grim reality of that night. A jury found Richard David Johnson guilty of 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter and 1 count of reckless driving. The evidence was undeniable, a testament to his gross negligence and reckless disregard for human life. The court sentenced him to 21 years, though 20 years and 6 months of that sentence were suspended, suggesting that even in the darkest hours, there can be a glimmer of leniency. But then, an unexpected twist emerged. On a crisp October day in 2023, Johnson turned himself in once again. This time, he would serve his sentence in an unconventional manner, through the city's home electronic incarceration program. It was not the typical path for a convicted criminal, but then again, Johnson was not an ordinary inmate. As a former police officer with a spotless record, his case was far from the ordinary. The decision to allow Johnson to serve his sentence at home raised eyebrows, sparking a debate within the community. Some questioned whether this was a fair outcome for the lives lost on that tragic night. Legal analyst Russ Stone weighed in on the unusual decision, explaining that Johnson's status as a police officer with no prior record was a significant factor. While the tragedy demanded accountability, the judge believed that electronic monitoring would be a safer option to ensure that Johnson adhered to the rules of his at-home incarceration. In addition to his prison sentence, Johnson faced additional consequences. His driver's license was suspended for a year, a measure taken to ensure that his actions would not be repeated. He would also be placed on probation once his sentence was served, a reminder that his past would continue to shadow his future. Michael Davis. Karma, they say, is a silent observer, watching, waiting, and ultimately delivering its own brand of justice. In the case of Michael Davis, this reckoning came in the most unexpected and devastating manner. Davis, a law enforcement officer who was entrusted with upholding the law and ensuring the safety of his community, became the perpetrator of a crime that would change the course of his life forever. The story begins with the tragic death of Hunter Britton, a 17-year-old teenager hailing from McRae, Arkansas. On the fateful morning of June 23rd, Hunter was pulled over during a routine traffic stop by Deputy Michael Davis. In the ensuing moments, what should have been a minor encounter between an officer and a young driver took a horrifying turn. Davis, the man responsible for maintaining order and protecting the lives of the citizens, instead became the cause of a young man's demise. The crime committed was nothing short of shocking, a fatal shooting, with Hunter Britton as the victim. Davis was charged with felony manslaughter, a grave offense that should have never been associated with a sworn officer of the law. The incident sent shockwaves through the community, as the people entrusted with their safety were seemingly the source of danger. However, the hand of karma was not far behind. Special Prosecutor Jeff Phillips of the 5th Judicial District took up the case, ensuring that justice would be pursued rigorously. Michael Davis was eventually convicted of negligent homicide, a misdemeanor that would, in the end, serve as the vessel of his karma. The verdict, while not as severe as some might have hoped for, marked the beginning of the end for the former deputy. The courtroom was filled with raw emotions on that day. Hunter Britton's family, devastated by their loss, yearned for justice to be served. Their desire was clear. They wanted a felony charge that would prevent Michael Davis from ever wearing a law enforcement uniform again. Their hearts were heavy, yet their determination was unwavering. For them, Hunter's memory would not be forgotten, and they made sure to vocalize their demands, even as they faced a sentence that seemed too lenient to bear. The case attracted national attention and drew the focus of civil rights activists, including the prominent Reverend Al Sharpton. He stood with Hunter's family, speaking at the teenager's funeral and underscoring the need for change in policing. It was a stark reminder that no community could escape the reckoning that karma brought to the fore when authority was abused. Notably, the conviction of Michael Davis was a rare event in Arkansas. He became one of only 5 law enforcement officers in the state to face charges for an on-duty shooting since 2005. Even more striking, he was the first to be convicted by a jury, a testament to the pursuit of justice in a system that sometimes appeared flawed. Karma, like a shadow, clung to Davis throughout the trial. His own actions, such as failing to turn on his body camera until after the fatal shooting, only served to further darken his image. The courtroom was witness to the footage that displayed the moments immediately following the shooting, leaving questions lingering in the minds of those seeking answers. Roger Rogerson. The winds of fate began to howl on that ominous day in 2014 when Rogerson, a former police detective, was charged with the murder of Jamie Gow, a Sydney student. The narrative unfurled like a gritty crime drama, revealing a sordid tale of a drug deal gone awry. Yet the twist in this real-life drama lay in the hands of fate as karma unveiled itself with a vengeance. The courtroom where Rogerson and his co-conspirator Glenn McNamara stood trial became the stage for a karmic showdown. They may have pleaded not guilty, but the threads of destiny had been woven too tightly. In 2016, the judge's gavel fell, and the duo was declared guilty of Gow's murder. Justice was swift, accompanied accompanied by a life sentence. Karma, it seemed, knew no leniency in the face of a sinister joint criminal enterprise that was extensive in planning and brutal in execution. But this was only the tip of the iceberg in Rogerson's dark journey. As legal proceedings unfolded around the 2009 contract murder of Michael McGurk, more shocking revelations emerged. While incarcerated, Rogerson, McNamara, and Fortunato "Lucky" Candelario attempted to extort Ron Medich, a businessman suspected of orchestrating McGurk's murder. The web of corruption, it seemed, had ensnared not just rogue cops but also powerful figures in the business world. Rogerson's shadowy past reached back decades, even before the Gao case. He was summoned to Brisbane in the aftermath of the tragic Whiskey Au Go-Go nightclub fire in 1973. His involvement was in response to accusations by John Andrew Stewart, the man accused of igniting the fire. Stewart claimed that criminals from Sydney were behind the nightclub's extortion attempts. What came to light later was a revelation that sent shockwaves through the law enforcement community. Rogerson and another detective, Noel Morey, were involved in fabricating evidence during the investigation. The revelations led to questions about the integrity of the justice system and the extent to which corruption had infiltrated the police force. Throughout his police career, Roger Rogerson was no stranger to controversy. He had earned a reputation for securing convictions through questionable means. The use of police verbals, unsigned records of interviews, had raised serious concerns about the fairness of his methods. His involvement in high-profile cases like the Ananda Marga conspiracy and the shooting death of Warren Lanfranchi had brought allegations of misconduct and abuse of power. The accusations were further fueled by claims of retribution and foul play. One particularly chilling incident stood out, a murder-for-hire scheme aimed at fellow police officer Michael Drury. Rogerson's involvement was marked by bribery offers and an attempted assassination. Although he faced charges, he managed to evade conviction, leaving a trail of suspicion and unanswered questions. Even after his departure from the police force, Rogerson's life remained entangled with the law. He found himself on the wrong side of the legal divide once again, this time facing a criminal conviction for drug dealing. Although the conviction was later overturned on appeal, his time behind bars served as a stark reminder of the relentless pursuit of justice. Joanni Crespo. Karma, that relentless force that reaps what one sows, descended upon Newark police officer Joanni Crespo with unrelenting swiftness, forever reshaping the trajectory of his life. The journey toward this karmic reckoning commenced innocuously during a frigid January night in 2019. What transpired from there was a turbulent sequence of events that would culminate in Crespo's abrupt termination from his position and the initiation of an arduous legal battle. The story unfolds in the unlikeliest of places, during what should have been a standard traffic stop, a duty of the utmost routine for Crespo. Positioned at the cusp of upholding the law, this officer's life took a harrowing turn when his keen eye discerned the presence of a firearm within the vehicle. What was meant to be an unremarkable encounter swiftly unraveled into a pulse-quickening high-speed chase, propelling a chain of events that would scar all who became entangled. Amid this maelstrom, Crespo's actions came under intense scrutiny. As the situation escalated, he was thrust into the unforgiving spotlight, cast in the role of a responding officer. What unfolded in this dire moment was captured unequivocally by the body-worn cameras, their unrelenting gaze freezing in time the series of shots Crespo discharged at the suspect's vehicle. These pivotal moments left indelible imprints on Newark's history, their repercussions echoing through time. Tragically, this maelstrom of violence exacted its toll, resulting in the untimely death of Gregory Griffin and leaving Andrew Dixon grievously wounded. The echoes of this calamity reverberated through the justice system, which, though delayed, ultimately came to pass. The verdict, when it finally arrived, was unequivocal and stern in its judgment. Officer Crespo was found guilty on all counts, weighed down by the gravity of his actions and their consequences. The charges brought against him were far-reaching, encompassing aggravated manslaughter, aggravated assault, weapons offenses, and official misconduct. The jury's collective determination was resolute, concluding that Crespo's deployment of deadly force had been unjustified, a blatant violation of the law. Inside the courtroom, a maelstrom of emotions enveloped Crespo's family and friends, who numbered around 20, as the weight of the guilty verdict bore down upon them. The judge, perceiving a potential flight risk in Crespo, took the momentous step of ordering his remand. This decision underscored the severity of the situation and the intricate legal journey that had culminated in this pivotal moment, marking the beginning of the long road ahead for Crespo, who faced the impending consequences of his actions. Marcus Eberhart. Karma, that elusive force believed to balance the scales of justice, sometimes takes its time, but when it strikes, it does so with resounding force. Such was the case with Marcus Eberhart, a former police officer in East Point, Georgia, whose actions set in motion a sequence of events that would eventually bring him to the precipice of destiny. The story began in the picturesque town of East Point, where life unfolded at its own pace under the warm southern sun. It was a place where the bonds of community ran deep, and the promise of each new day held a sense of security and trust in the guardians of the law. However, little did the residents know that beneath this facade of tranquility, a storm was brewing, one that would soon test the integrity of the town's law enforcement. Gregory Towns, a 24-year-old unarmed black man, found himself at the center of a domestic disturbance call in East Point. When a group of officers, including Marcus Eberhart, arrived at the scene, they believed they were acting in the name of justice. The distressing call had summoned them, and they answered with the authority that came with their badges. What happened next would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Towns, attempting to elude the watchful gaze of the police, chose to run, setting in motion a tragic sequence of events. A brief chase ensued, ending with the officers catching up to him. But instead of employing the tactics designed to de-escalate the situation, they chose to escalate it with brutal and shocking violence. Gregory Towns, handcuffed and incapacitated, was now at the mercy of the officer's authority. However, instead of being shielded by the law, he became the victim of an unthinkable ordeal. Officers Marcus Eberhart and Howard Weems, believing Towns was non-compliant, subjected him to a barrage of electric shocks from their tasers. The painful and merciless shocks, delivered over a dozen times, turned Towns' world into a living nightmare, every jolt a violation of his human dignity. The aftermath of this brutal ordeal revealed a chilling truth. An autopsy report unveiled that Towns had succumbed to hypertensive cardiovascular disease exacerbated by physical exertion and conducted electrical stimulation. Yet in the official reports penned by the officers, they claimed they had used the tasers sparingly, only to ensure Towns' compliance. Eberhart in his report stated, "Towns stated, 'I'm tired.' Towns did not state he was in pain or appear to be in any distress. Towns was very calm and disregarded commands that were given. I then removed the cartridge from my taser to drive stun Towns." This account starkly contradicted the painful reality of a man who was not merely fatigued, but physically unable to respond to their commands. The shocking sequence of events could not escape the vigilant eye of justice. Over time, as the incident came under increasing scrutiny, Eberhart resigned and Weems was fired from the police department. The city of East Point, acknowledging the tragic toll exacted by Towns' death, paid a substantial $1 million settlement to his grieving family. Jason Kenney. In the complex web of justice and accountability, there are stories that grip our collective conscience and leave an indelible mark on the annals of law enforcement. The case of Jason Kenney, a former Chatham County deputy, and the tragic death of Matthew Ajibade is one such narrative, where the hand of karma seems to have played a decisive role. In 2015, the courtroom drama unfolded, leading to a peculiar form of retribution for Jason Kenney. He stood before Chatham County Superior Court Judge James F. Bass Jr., who sentenced him to a month in custody and served exclusively on weekends. His conviction? Inflicting injury on an inmate, Matthew Ajibade, confined to the Chatham County Jail. Judge Bass, in his wisdom, also mandated a 3-year probation, asserting that Kenney's actions had involved some infliction of discomfort on the detainee. But the story doesn't end with this sentence. Jason Kenney, once a deputy sheriff, found himself at a crossroads of accountability, facing the consequences of his actions. In the courtroom, Assistant District Attorney Christy Barker made a compelling argument for jail time, insisting that Kenney had violated the public's trust. She pointed out a disturbing cover-up that aimed to ensure that no one was held accountable, had it not been for the jail video capturing their conduct. On the defense's side, the attorney representing Kenney presented a perspective that implied the consequences were unintended. Attorney Willie Yancey II, who represented Jason Kenney, argued that there had been no intent to harm Matthew Ajibade, thereby suggesting that the punishment was more severe than the former deputy's actions warranted. The verdict left Matthew Ajibade's family deeply upset, but not entirely surprised. For them, the system had already failed Matthew from the outset, and the trial brought little consolation or justice. The pivotal role of evidence in the courtroom cannot be overstated. The trial featured graphic police surveillance videos that displayed the harsh treatment Matthew Ajibade endured. One particularly disturbing segment showed a deputy using a stun gun on Ajibade while he was restrained and motionless in a chair. The video also captured the altercation, depicting the force used by deputies that ultimately led to Ajibade's tragic demise. The case of Jason Kenney serves as a stark reminder of the concept of karma within the criminal justice system. While he may have escaped severe punishment compared to his colleagues, he was not exempt from facing the consequences of his actions in the eyes of the law. Guarionex Candelario Rivera. In the shadow depths of a Puerto Rican police headquarters, the grim specter of karma unfolded its chilling tale. It was a cold December morning in 2015 when Guarionex Candelario Rivera, a 19-year veteran of the force, became the epicenter of an unfathomable tragedy. With a heart darkened by motives known only to himself, he embarked on a horrific journey that would ultimately lead him to face the very karmic forces he set in motion. On that ill-fated day, the walls of the station bore witness to a gruesome chapter in law enforcement history. Inexplicably, Officer Candelario Rivera held hostage a female lieutenant, a male commander, and a policewoman. He had them captive within the confines of his office, and as the world watched in disbelief, he silenced their voices forever. The victims were Lieutenant Luz Soto Segarra, a dedicated 23-year veteran of the force who was on the brink of promotion to the rank of captain, CM Dr. Frank Roman, a stalwart with 28 years of service, and Officer Rosario Hernandez de Hoyos, who had just returned to her duties following a heart operation. It was a scene of devastation as the echoing gunshots left the station in a state of shock. Officer Candelario Rivera's motive remained an enigma, shrouded in darkness. Authorities were on the verge of engaging in negotiations to defuse the situation when he unleashed his fury. The motive behind this horrifying act may forever elude understanding, a mystery that even the most astute investigators could not unravel. As the smoke cleared and the truth emerged, it was revealed that this was not a random act. Guarionex Candelario Rivera had a troubled history within the department. 2 years before the fateful incident, his weapon had been confiscated, and he underwent a psychological evaluation. However, inexplicably, the authorities returned his weapon to him, unknowingly providing him with the means to perpetrate the unimaginable. The aftermath of this cataclysmic event rippled through Puerto Rico, leaving a community in mourning and a nation in shock. It was a somber reminder of the fragile line that separates order from chaos, duty from derangement. The cruel twist of karma that awaited Officer Candelario Rivera was unlike any other. The very act of violence he had inflicted upon his comrades now echoed in his own suffering. He became a victim of his own malevolence, shot twice during the attack, and left hospitalized as a result of his actions. Aaron Cody Smith. It all began on a chilly night in Montgomery on February 25, 2016, when Smith, a dedicated police officer, was entrusted with the ominous duty of stopping anything and everything that moves by his stern supervisor. This directive was a response to a string of property crimes that had plagued the city during Smith's night patrols. As the midnight hours slipped away, Smith's path crossed with that of Gregory Gunn, an ordinary man caught in the crosshairs of fate. Gunn, upon noticing the distinct markings of Smith's police vehicle, quickened his pace, hands hidden within his pockets. It was a moment of hesitation that would ignite a chain of events, the likes of which no one could have foreseen. Smith stepped out of his vehicle, his authoritative voice demanding that Gunn reveal his hands, and thus began the dramatic confrontation. A pat-down unveiled a hard object in Gunn's waistband, leaving Smith apprehensive. What happened next was a whirlwind of actions and reactions that would culminate in an irreversible tragedy. Smith's attempt to detain Gunn escalated into a heated standoff, with Gunn resisting arrest and Smith resorting to his taser. In the heat of the moment, Gunn reached for a painter's pole, a decision that would prove fateful. Fearing for his life and the lives of others, Smith made the harrowing choice to draw his firearm and open fire. The echoing gunshots shattered the silence of that night, and Gunn fell, his life slipping away. An autopsy would later confirm the presence of yellow paint chips on the hand Smith had identified as Gunn's weapon hand, lending an eerie confirmation to the sequence of events as Smith had described. In the immediate aftermath, it appeared that Smith might escape the web of legal consequences, with initial investigators deeming it a clean shoot. However, the winds of destiny shifted, and within a mere 6 days, Smith found himself under arrest, charged with murder. The city of Montgomery, aware of the tense political climate, saw in Smith's prosecution an opportunity to maintain order, with little regard for the life they were about to irrevocably change. Smith's journey through the labyrinthine corridors of the justice system would be fraught with hardship, culminating in his conviction for heat-of-passion manslaughter in November 2019. A 14-year prison sentence followed, leaving his family shattered and bewildered. Yet it was only the beginning of their tumultuous journey. As the world grappled with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, Smith's appeal process was further slowed, and in June 2021, the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed his conviction. However, his family refused to capitulate, determined to challenge a justice system that had seemingly failed them. Their path took them to the Alabama Supreme Court, which, though denying Smith's appeal on technical grounds, conceded the glaring issues in his case. Roy Oliver. In the annals of justice, there exist stories that defy our understanding of right and wrong, stories that challenge the very essence of morality. One such story revolves around Roy Oliver, a former Balch Springs police officer whose journey from law enforcer to convict serves as a stark reminder that karma, in all its brutal glory, can have a way of catching up with those who sow the seeds of wrongdoing. It was a fateful night when the wheels of destiny began to turn. Vidal Allen, then just 16, found himself stepping out from the driver's side of a 2004 Impala, the laser sights of police guns fixated on his trembling form. He was handcuffed, a silent witness to the horrifying scene that had unfolded just moments before. He asked a policeman to pray, "God, take care of my brother," a prayer of anguish that would echo through the halls of justice for years to come. The night had started innocently enough, as teenagers often do, with Jordan Edwards and his friends leaving a house party. They were in the Impala heading away from the revelry when their world suddenly erupted in gunfire. Roy Oliver, a white police officer, had fired 5 shots from his service rifle. The second bullet found its mark, piercing the back of 15-year-old Jordan's head, snuffing out a young life and shattering the innocence of youth. Jordan slumped over the car's center console, blood staining his once smiling face and pooling down his blue long-sleeve shirt. His arm rested on a soda bottle, a poignant symbol of a life cut short, a bottle he had bought earlier for what would have been his first high school party. Jordan was remembered as a smiley, enthusiastic, polite honor roll student and athlete, the kind of young soul the world could ill afford to lose. For Roy Oliver, his actions that night marked a descent into a dark abyss from which there would be no escape. Convicted of murder by a Dallas County jury, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison, making him the first on-duty police officer in Texas to be found guilty of murder in 45 long years. It was a landmark ruling, a message from the wheels of justice that, even in a system where police officers are rarely indicted, let alone convicted of murder and on-duty shootings, the truth will find its way to the surface. But the story didn't end with a single conviction. Justice, as it turned out, had more in store for Roy Oliver. A civil trial unfolded, aiming to determine whether Oliver's actions were characterized by excessive and unreasonable force when he fired upon the car that night. The trial also carried with it the quest for monetary damages sought by Odell Edwards, the grieving father of Jordan. It was a pursuit of justice that had begun years before, a relentless endeavor to hold those responsible accountable. As the civil trial proceeded, the gravity of Roy Oliver's actions became increasingly evident. The pain he had inflicted on the Edwards family and the community could not be understated. Roy Oliver betrayed his badge and his code of ethics, proclaimed Darrell Washington, a lawyer for the Edwards family, during the opening statements of the trial. Karma, it seemed, was no longer a mere concept. It had manifested in the form of a legal reckoning. This is a tale of corrupt cops and their rendezvous with relentless karma, a stark reminder that even those in positions of authority are not immune to the consequences of their actions. If this narrative has piqued your interest, explore more captivating stories by clicking the cards presented on your screen.